Welcome to the Giving It Away podcast. I'm Hedgehog Man, also known as Craig. My guest this week's Ethan. Ethan, how you doing, mate? Nice to have you here.
Yeah, I'm doing all right, yeah. I feel very relaxed.
Good, that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Well, like I say with all my guests, tell me a little bit about your childhood, where you're from, your early years.
So, I was brought up in Sunderland for...
I'm sorry to hear that.
So, I was brought up in Sunderland in a nice street with parents who were very kind of push and pull away from me. I feel like I did have a nice childhood. They gave me loads of things I kind of wanted as a child, like going on holiday, but they weren't kind of there for me emotionally.
Right.
My schooling days, I started off in primary school, in this Catholic primary school, and then I went to so I really got badly bullied, but I didn't think that was him. I think that was his autism trying to make him the bigger person in that situation, and him biting my arms and doing kind of other things. It kind of put me in a situation where I was round in the corner of the school and my grandpa was walking past, and after he started walking past, it was kind of like he jumped over the fence, my grandpa, and tried to pull up them two, me and this other guy apart. So I got diagnosed with dyspraxia at a really early age as well.
Right.
Which dyspraxia is a coordination disorder, so I couldn't physically move my food tray,
Right.
over to clear it off. So I kept on dropping it, or kept on spilling it, and everything went all over. And my handwriting and my grammar wasn't up to scratch.
Right.
And my handwriting, my handwriting was all over the place. So in school, in primary school, they put me in a smaller group, which I felt like it was all right,
Mhm.
but I was with the other kind of people who had learning difficulties.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't academic smart on paper, but I was academic kind of in other senses, like going out to, like, I couldn't know the ABCs off by heart. I could know the phonics off by heart.
Mm-hmm.
But with that, it was kind of like I couldn't physically write anything down. My signals from my hand, my brain in my hand was really bad. So my mum and my dad put me into private school.
Right.
And when I got into private school, going from a really rough Catholic school, primary Catholic school, to somewhere really posh, I've always been surrounded by money and a bit of toxicity with money.
Right.
And my mum and dad put me in a private school, and I didn't really fit in there. I wasn't normal, as you say you are, and it was kind of like I tried to fit in there with different crowds and stuff like that, which wasn't too good. I felt like at the end of the day of school,
Mm-hmm.
With my mum and my dad being so kind of so pushy and pulley, and I think my mum is really she's a great mum, but I feel like she is just, how can I put it? It's kind of like 1 minute she's there for me, and she's there, like she's texting me non-stop. She cares for me, but she goes caring in another sense of direction, which I feel very kind of like, I love my mum to pieces, and I love my dad, but they just weren't there for me emotionally when I needed them. They're always like, go and see your grandma, go and see your grandma. And I felt like that is just, I spent a lot of my younger days, younger childhood with my grandma. I've got really fond memories of my grandma, like singing Wheels on the Bus in my pushchair. I even can remember that. And it's kind of like, I really wanted to, she's always been my emotional person who I used to talk to on emotional, really emotional level. And she's always been there for me no matter what. I started drugs. The first hit I got was from a cigarette when I went on holiday. Actually,
Right.
This woman, this woman was handing out these fags, and I said, "Can I have one? Can I have one?" And that was my kind of first hit. And then she was like,
How old were you then?
About 10 or 11.
Right.
And that was just kind of the main spot in my addiction, because I loved that hit of where that dopamine rush went to your head. And I loved kind of, so she was like, "Oh, take that drink as well." And I took that drink, and I was like, I loved drinking as well, like at a very early age. But I hid it from my mum and dad for a very long time. When I was about 12 or 13, I went to this school trip, and this guy in the corner, this new kid, was like, "Oh, do you want to try this thing that I got?" And I was already smoking to start off with. So I thought, let's try it. And I felt like, I didn't feel normal, but I felt like this sense of calmness and peacefulness, because my brain goes 100 miles per hour, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And it's kind of like, I sit down and, I was out on there, and I absolutely loved the joint and stuff like that. I feel like that's one of it. When you talk about memories of using, I don't get the bad memories. I always get the good memories of using, and with that, I feel like it's just the kind of, like, you have to tell your addiction to fuck off. Basically, I honestly feel like that was the most kind of memory that I got, is sitting down over the Baltic in Gateshead on a school trip, and doing that. And then my mum used to be very kind of closed off and very kind of, "You can't go out there, you can't go out there, you can't do this, you can't do that." And I went out and did it anyway. I sneaked out one night when I was 11 or 12, and went to the park, and smoked and drank, and that was when the kind of whiz and the speed coming
Right.
in with all.
How old were you then?
About 13.
Right.
And I used to get I used to get kind of like really high off the speed, and then the cannabis used to bring me back down before I used to get home, and then I went to bed. But I think at my prom as well, that was when my addiction took to the next level. I think I honestly think that me having no food and thinking that I can have an all night with no food at the prom was the best option for me, when it kind of wasn't. I started drinking at like 11 o'clock at night to like 6, or I think it was 6 or 7
Mm-hmm.
in the blooming morning, and that was kind of where I couldn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't physically stop. When I put that first one in, I couldn't stop for the full on 6.5 hours or 7.5 hours I was drinking from, one after the other, and I was taking vodka, and that was when my prom kind of got out, like got physically onto the coke, really.
So how old are you at a prom? About 16?
15 or 16.
15
I
or
think I
15.
was 15.
They didn't have
Going-
proms when I went to school, you see. I'm a bit old for that.
Are you a bit old for that?
Anyway, and if they had of, I was that naughty in school, they wouldn't have let me go to them anyway, so it didn't really matter.
I feel like that's kind of when it all took on itself off the chin. I feel like from the June, July time of that
Mm-hmm.
to the 16, when it was my 16th birthday, I went to Ibiza, and the worst part about that is I didn't just have an addiction to drugs. I also have an addiction to love and going on Tinder or going on any dating sites
Mm-hmm.
to make me happy and to make me fulfill that void. I feel like it's always about filling that void in with like drugs, alcohol, love, sex, and everything else. And I think that I noticed that I had a sex addiction when I was kind of like 11, when I started primary school as well. My mum and my dad kind of my mum and my dad kind of took the thing out, and they kept on taking my phone off me when I used to go on any kind of porn site or stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I felt like taking that phone away from me was kind of, I couldn't speak to my friends from school. I couldn't connect with my friends from school, and that was kind of hard. And then I was talking to, so I downloaded Instagram when I was like 12 or 13, and that was the most kind of place where I used to talk to people and send stuff, and it wasn't kind of nice what I sent, but it was kind of like I did it to validate myself because I thought I was really unworthy and I was really insecure about my body and my talking and I felt like at the start of my using, when I got drunk or when I got high or when I got everything, all my stutter and everything went away. And I didn't I love that about drugs and I love that about drink actually because I didn't like talking to people when I wasn't drunk or
Yeah.
high. I used to be a really quiet person. And I felt like that was the most kind of insecurity because me getting bullied, even in private school as well, was kind of like it was kind of like hard. This guy, when I moved up to primary school, no, when I moved up to secondary school, not primary school, secondary school, I kind of had this guy and he kept on bullying me at school and I didn't know why, but I come out at a really early age when I was about 12 or 11
Okay.
and I knew who I was and I knew I didn't want to kind of shy away from people at school.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't come out to my mum or dad until I was about 15, but I come out to everyone at school when I was like 11 or 12 because I thought that I was different. And I've always felt this kind of different kind of atmosphere with me.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was kind of 16, I went I Ibiza, and I started skiing from when I was about 10 or 11, and skiing was a big part of my life. It really was, and I met this kind of guy when I was out in Ibiza who did ski, and it was kind of like I tried to. We were both about the same age. We were both in the same resort, kind of, and we both kind of started talking, and we had so much in common, and that was I would say that was kind of my first face-to-face relationship.
Right.
Abroad, but I won't class it as a relationship because it only lasted 2 weeks, but it kind of felt like it was a relationship because I did have sex with him on kind of numerous occasions during that week, and we both said we loved each other, and I think that was because of my insecurity and his insecurity, that were both parted ways, and it was kind of like it was really hard to figure out that rejection and that abandonment from someone, and I started getting really bad anxiety and depression. I think I've always had anxiety and depression since I've been little, actually. I think my anxiety come with stuff that's happened in my past and all the trauma, and I feel like that's where my anxiety and my depression comes involved with it. I feel like with that situation that happened to me, that was kind of when I started using more and more and more. And I had a so I started drama school as well from being the age of 10 or 11. No, I would say about 8 actually. I think 8, 9, 10 or 11. I can't really remember. I started at Northern Star, it was called, in Sunderland.
Right.
And she performs on the Southern Empire once a year.
Right.
And I loved doing that. I loved being in a crowd of people and performing on stage. And I feel like that's where it all comes through. I feel like I've always been that confident outside, but inside, I'm just a scared little boy. I feel like being scared inside puts on that ego to say that you're all right, and to say that you're kind of, if someone comes over to me in the madness and tells me, Are you all right, Ethan? I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm fine, but now I'm diving deep into my feelings. So I loved being on that kind of stage, and I moved to the Gala Theatre Stage School in Durham, and I've been in loads of TV shows as well, like Vera.
Yeah.
And I was in series 1, episode 4 of Vera walking out the church, and that was, I met Vera's psychic, and I didn't meet Brenda Blethyn, but I really wanted to meet her. And then I was in George Gently as well, and this was before my days. And then I've always been extras in things.
Right.
So like Harriet's Army on CBBC as well. I was in I was in that as well, and we filmed in Beamish and over Ponteland Way, and it was, I met some brilliant actors and actresses of there as well. I feel like that's, and then I performed at the Gala Theatre as well, and that was like Jekyll and Hyde, the Wizard of Oz, which the Wizard of Oz, I was the understudy for the wizard, but it was like a stage school, so that was when I got most of my confidence up, by like speaking out and learning lines and stuff like that. And then when I turned 18, I used to go out and about and go to clubs and go to bars, and I thought, I'm an adult now, I can do whatever I want to do. And I told my mum that straight off the bat and said, I want to do what I want to do. And I used to go out around about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, and I didn't come back home. I went to different people's houses, and I didn't get home till about 7 o'clock, and smoking crack and stuff like that, and getting drunk and smoking weed and everything else. And I felt like it made me feel part of. I've always wanted to feel part of in a crowd, but it made me feel part of. But I didn't really feel part of at the time. I did have 2 friends, and I made them on a night out. But this woman told something to me, so I went up to him and told him, and we kind of broke it off. The friendship just crumbled after that. And I used to have this really close friend in school, and we went to church together. And I was really, I used to sit with her on the metro going to college, and that was the most kind of, me and her used to sit down, have proper in-depth chats about things, and we used to talk how we felt and stuff like that. And then she moved down to uni, down somewhere down south, and that kind of fizzled out when she's been down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I got friends up in college, and then the college friends were kind of like, it was kind of like I tried to fit in there, and it just didn't work. I started smoking really heavily and vaping really heavily. My mum kept on stealing my vapes, and that was kind of, my friendships have always been off and on, off and on, off and on, and I feel like that's kind of where it all comes from. My second relationship only lasted another 2 weeks, and then I was just, the only reason I was getting relationships is to get loved, to get validated, and to get, to just to feel normal and fill in that void. Like I said before, I feel like me having relationship after relationship after relationship after relationship made that void fill up, because I hate being sitting with myself. I hate sitting by myself.
Yeah.
And so when I was 18, I went out with a drag queen, and I went out with him for a month, and my mum got really, I think that my mum is very kind of, puts me in bubble wrap, and you can't let out of the house. So I said, I'm staying over his house, don't you worry about that. And we're smoking cannabis and sniffing a line of coke, and I got really paranoid, and I was like, fuck you, mum, I'm not going home, blah, blah, blah. And that was the most kind of awful thing I did to my mum, was that. I feel like that's the one thing I need to kind of, I think that she got the aspect of control as well as does I. And when she said that to me, I felt like, is he gonna reject me? And then I felt bad for leaving him. And then I got home, and my uncle said, have you been on drugs? And I was like, no, in denial, no, I haven't really been on drugs. I haven't, no. And I think I started going out again at the back end of August, and that was when my drinking kind of turned the most. I went out every weekend, and I told my mum she said, yeah, I'm going to lock the door if you're not back in. I'm like, lock the door, then I'm going to be out all night. You don't worry about me. And I didn't want my mum to worry about me. And my dad, I feel like I thought I was above them when I really wasn't. Like, I thought I was above them. I feel like that's the most damaging part. And then I did it again. So I went into this relationship, and I lived down this roughest part of Sunderland, and it was really hard to stop using. I drank every night. I drank every night, and then I used to walk to my ex's house. No, my ex's work before 10 o'clock. So I used to get time to walk there, smoke a couple of joints. I had a bit of weed in my pocket. Get at work, give him half a joint, walk home to his house, and it was kind of like we'll be bang on the crack and the speed so many times. And then I kind of, one day I had enough of my parents. And that was a fault of my own. I was like, I'm not looking after the dog. And that was the most part of the story when that kind of happened. Like, I moved in with them. We had no carpets on the floor. We had a settee that was full of cat scratches. He had 4 cats, and it was like, I'm kind of allergic to cats, and
Me too. Believe it or not.
And then one night I was lying in bed and I was cracked up to my fucking eyeballs and I was high as a kite and I was on Wiz and I was on Valium and I was trying to get myself down, and I come out with this really big rash and then my eyes started itching and I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, what the fuck's happening? Am I fucking... Is it allergic reaction off the drugs? Nah, it's only the fucking cats been laying in the fucking bed while I've been gone. And that was... I thought I was having an actual allergic reaction to
Crack
drugs.
rash.
A crack rash, but it wasn't. So we walked 20 minutes to this garage to get antihistamines.
Yeah.
And then I got addicted to them. I got really bad addicted to them. Like, I used to take them all the fucking time.
Can you get addicted to antihistamines?
Because you get... So you get that rush down under your... And I've just come to notice it while I've been doing my step 6. I was like, hey, no, my step 4. Like, I was writing it down and I was like, because it makes you, the higher milligram makes you fall asleep.
I didn't know that. I take antihistamines every day, but just over-the-counter ones, and I didn't know that.
So I used to... So my mum had a box of them, right? So I of like 120 milligram. So I was like, I used to sneak them out the cupboard, put them in my pocket, go there, and then I used to take them every day. So on a morning and on a night. So... And then some during the day just to get myself to sleep and relaxed. And then I started... I went on with that relationship for a canny while.
Mm-hmm.
For about 3 months in... No, I don't think I moved in with him straight away. That's the thing. I waited about 3 months into the relationship to move in with him. And it was the kind of the worst decision I could have made, because over the road for me was a person who used to sell fags, a person who used to sell weed. On the end of my street, there was a crack house. So I used to go in there for my crack and used to sit in the crack house for a bit. And then I used to go around my neighbour's house a couple of doors down, and she was a shoplifter, and me and her used to go out shoplifting on a regular basis,
Right.
nearly all the time.
What did you used to pinch?
Earphones,
Yeah.
alcohol, sticks. Sticks are the best ones to sell.
What's a stick? What do you mean?
A steak, do you know steak with chips or steak with...
Oh, steak.
Steak,
I thought
yeah.
you said stick.
No, steak.
Yeah.
And then all the smellies, so like the air fresheners and the deodorants and the toothpaste and the bag papers and the lighters and all them kind of stuff. Like, I used to pinch them quite a lot. And then I used to go into Home Bargains, Poundland, and I used to love Poundland because you used to get Kim Woodburn's fucking cleaning on the floor.
Yeah.
And I used to take that and use it in my house and sell the rest. Like, used to get I used to get a bag and do all those big Sports Direct bags.
Yeah.
So I used to fill that up to the brim and then so me and her used to have one. And then I only used to do it, right, while my ex was at work. And then after that, after that, it was kind of like he used to come along with me.
Right.
And so me and him used to get the bus down to Pallion from where I used to live, go into there was this pound world thing, and at the side of that they used to have candles and sweets and chocolates and all these, so I used to pack it full because it was closing down anyways, so I used to pack it full of fucking shit, and then rush out the store. And because they didn't have any, they had them security things,
Yeah.
but they didn't have any
Tags on what you were pinching.
tags what I was pinching. So the last straw for that was getting barred from every B&M.
Right.
So I went into B&M and it was pissing down, it was chucking down with rain. And because of that, we thought, let's go to B&M on the bus. So we went on the bus. We only had a few quid left because we spent it all on drugs. And anyways, so we went into B&M, and we thought to myself, what do you want me to get? So I I stuffed some fucking penguins and fucking sweets in my pockets, and I thought to myself, there was a nice ornament of a grandma, because I didn't have any money at the time. I normally get my grandma something each Christmas, so I got this angel, then I got something else, and then I got something else for like Christmases going back like 5 years. And so I thought I'd take that and put it in my pocket. And that didn't really work because I don't know, the CCTV in there was kind of like really good, right? It was amazing. Like, I thought it was the best shop. It's the best shop for CCTV apparently, and that's what my ex next door neighbour said. It's the best shop. And because of that, she was like, don't go in there. So my impulse, thinking I'm better than everyone else, I can be better than everyone else, and I can go in there, be a little snake and stuff like that, crawling through the thing. And that was the much mistaken thing I should have done, because I've become very complacent.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought nothing would stop me. And it wasn't that. Like this guy come around the corner when we're filling up with fucking security cameras and everything else, and he said, "You with us." So he took us to the back room, and he was like, "Is this your first time shoplifting in here?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing it again." But my mum was in there, so my mum and my brother were in there, and I wasn't talking to them. So I said hello, and then I walked away. But my mum and my brother were in there shopping for pens, and I was like, "Fucking hell no!" Like at the same time as me walking down this thing with the security guard, and I was like, "Oh fucking hell no." But I think that was my adrenaline rush then, because I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, do you know what adrenaline rush, packing everything in your bag and then fucking off? Like, you can't fuck off with everything that you used to get. Like, I used to get like 500 quid of like stuff per week, like £100 a day. And that was kind of my thing, that I could spend it on drugs. And I couldn't really do that because of that. Like, I couldn't really do that anymore because I was barred from that shop, so I couldn't go in that shop anymore. I couldn't go in home bargain, so we just starved. Like, we're pretty much starved ourselves of like noodles or shit like that, because we only got like £700, but 350 of that goes on the rent. So we only got no, is it 450 goes that on the rent, and then we only got like 200 left. So like, we couldn't last that in a month, so we used to buy a McDonald's and then go out shop and then come home and then spend the rest like fucking shoplifting. But when we're in there and we're giving everything over, I really wanted that ornament, so I kept it in my pocket, and they had to search me. I didn't like being searched. Like, I was like, fuck you, like, you're not fucking searching me. I want to do this. I want to like not be searched. And it was kind of like me being hitting the authority figures. And then my psychosis come back. Because the police were in there. And I thought to myself, undercover police.
Right.
Like, do you know when they go in and try to catch shoplifters?
Yeah.
So I was going to get a warning. But because they were in there, they kind of said, no, you can't get a warning. You have to get a full-on ban from all B&M stores. You know, you're not allowed to step foot in any B&M stores for a lifetime. So I'm not allowed in any B&M stores. But I've been in a few B&M stores since.
I've been barred from every HMV in the country for 30 years or something, but I still go in.
I feel like, so I got this kind of letter saying that I was very kind of like saying that I was barred from every B&M store. I've been plastered in the WhatsApp group of all B&M stores, so they couldn't find me. And then after that, I so I was still living with my ex at the time, and then I went round my neighbour's house one night, and I don't know if they give me spice for the very first time, or was it just a little. I've been smoking weed for since I was 12, 13, so I know what it feels like. But this felt like and this is why I got so paranoid for, because I was like, I'm never gonna go around there again. But I did, didn't I? But I was like, must have given me spice or something, because I felt unconscious, right? And I while my ex was at work, I was smoking so many spliffs, and I was like, I thought to myself, I need to go home. I was really tired, and my eyes went funny, so they went flashy, and then they went really kind of like, I couldn't see nothing. It was ringing in my ears.
Right.
And then I stood up, and I walked out, and then there was like this ornament vase thing, or a lamp or something, and I went down and I hit my head, the corner of my head. So I think it's one of these sides. I hit the corner of my head, and I must have been lying on the floor for 5 minutes. But he was shaking me. He was shaking me, and there was nothing. There was nothing. Kind of. I could see him, but I couldn't move my body or say anything. And then I got out, so I was walking down the street, and she was ringing the ambulance for me and all, and all this. I said, I'm fine, I can go home. And I collapsed again on the front of my doorstep, and all the neighbours come out and everything else. And I was like, oh, fucking hell, no. Like, I didn't want this to happen. Like, so I went in the hospital, and I thought to myself, I was swimming teaching at the time. I was ski instructing at the time. No, I wasn't ski instructing at the time, but I was swimming teaching at the time. I was working in 2 kind of private swimming companies. And after that, I was like, I'm going on the sick. I can't do this no more. My brain, I don't know if I was stressed out or there was a race and something. I was like, oh, I'm not doing it no more. Like, nah, this is not me. But when I went ski instructing, so I did my ski instructor course over in Sunderland, and then I went to do another one called a BSG Level 1 over in Castleford, down Leeds.
Yeah.
And the Premier Inn down there is the most you can get drugs. And I knew nearly all the drug dealers got down Castleford, like, and basically I used to go there every week ski instructing. So I used to ring them up, bring me a bag, and then go upstairs, just plaster myself. And then one night, this guy was like, do you want to come back up to my room? And I was like, go on then. And he was married, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't like this no more. Like, this is the most kind of weird thing of my life, is that. And then, so we kind of drank and had a few lines, and I was like, I'm off to bed. Like, I can't be bothered with this. And he was like, all right, we could do this at another time. And then I didn't see him ever again. And do you know what the most awful thing is about life? Is that that come down of coke. You're like, I used to go to work. I used to have a bender around my friend's house, which I've known since I was like 16, and she had a new boyfriend, a friend with benefit boyfriend kind of thing, and it was kind of like we went round her house. I went round her house, nearly his house or her house. I can't remember which one it was. One or the other. Like, when 1 week at their house, 1 week her house, 1 week their house, 1 week her house, and we used to get on the sesh kind of every kind of weekend, every Friday, and then one Friday, Saturday morning actually, they were like, come round. I was like, go on then, let's have a party. So we went round to have a party, and it was kind of like he brought this other friend round, and they stole my charger, they stole her credit card, they stole her loads of different things of mine, loads of different things of hers, and I was like, fuck you not doing this to me. Like, why the fuck are you doing this? And he turned about on me saying, you got your charger, didn't you? And I was like, that's a fucking shit charger. I want my other charger. So did you know what I thought? Get a new phone. So I got a Samsung phone, and my mum was like, why you got that Samsung phone for? I was like, because my other phone wouldn't charge. And she was like, that's not need. You're paying how much? You don't have that much money. I was like, I've got enough money, me. I'm all right, Jack, mate, because I go out shoplifting, I do this, I do that, I do this. And it's kind of like, so that kind of happened for 7 months of not knowing who I was or not knowing where I was or which house I'm going to be in next. And then one night on Christmas, so I broke up with him because we got a dog and we had 4 cats already. And every neighbour out the street broke it up with my friendship for getting that dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I got really kind of upset with that. It was kind of like I wanted to be friends with everyone, but they didn't want to be friends with me, and I got really upset with that. And I was like, why did we get the bloody dog in the first place? So one night we went out for a night out, me and him. First night out since we've only went out for the 7 months that we were together. We only went out 2 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my God, like, I wanted to go out every weekend. I wanted to get smashed every weekend, but I had to do it behind his back sometimes because he was like, why are you not doing it without me? So it was like, yeah, that kind of happened. So we went out for a night out, got absolutely smashed off our rockers, like properly smashed, took a bit of whiz. And on the way home, I was walking quick because I wanted to see the dog. I wanted to see if the dog was all right. And so he didn't like it. I didn't hold his hand on the way back. So I was like, that's so fine. And then, so we got home, and I was like, look what the dog's done. He's ripped all over the settee. He's ripped the Christmas tree down. This was in December, by the way. He ripped the Christmas tree down.
Mm-hmm.
He ripped everything down. All the door frames have been pushed off. Everything. All the house was messy, and I didn't really like a messy house. And I like everything neat and tidy. I actually, no, I don't. My bedroom's a mess at the minute. But when I was in the madness, I used to like everything kind of placed out and stuff like that. But now I'm just a bit laid back with it. So I got annoyed with that. And the one thing that he said to me was, why didn't you hold my hand? And I was like, it's because when I look back at it now, it's because I cared for him, but I cared what other people have thought of me first.
Mm-hmm.
And getting that dog was a really big resentment to him. And afterwards, so I put up with it. I drank myself to oblivion. He fell asleep. I got back up and I drank a litre of vodka down to like half.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is kind of the most, I don't know, kind of liberating feeling, because I was on the phone with my friend saying, can I have some weed, please? And we need some weed. So she brought it over. And we went out the back. I went out the back and smoked it with her. And it was kind of like everything kind of lifted again, and all that kind of, that void was filled, because I knew that I didn't. And I felt like my, this was another thing. So I felt like my sex was going down. So the love from him wasn't kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case. He loved me to the best of his ability, and I loved him. But I don't think it was the right time for both of us. So one night, So I did this course called Change for Life and Change for Something Else.
Yeah.
And that was with a program called Uplift.
Right.
And with that, it was kind of like changing my way to think and looking at my gratitude, looking at the ways that I work and all this. So I started that one of the people who was facilitating my thing give me an award.
Right.
For the best something, I can't remember, some award that should give me. And he didn't like that I went out the house. He didn't like that I went out the house to go out and open up to someone about my problems. And I tried to bring in, because he was very arrogant in a way about what he said to me and what he did to me. So I've written him down a list of what I think needed to be changed in our relationship. So I give him it. And he just ripped it up and chucked it away. And he said, I'm not getting any help for this. I'm not getting any help for my anxiety or my depression. And I was like, I have always wanted help, but I didn't know where I could get help from. And so I moved in with this. So from about the 13th of December, I was like, I passed him. So this is the night. So I passed him this massive certificate that I got. And he was like, oh, I'm going. He kept on going around his mum's and not paying me any attention whatsoever. And I've always wanted attention. That's me. Like I'm an attention seeking. I've always wanted attention.
Yeah.
And him going around his mum's would make me not have that attention.
Yeah.
And I felt like that since we got the dog, right? So
Right.
Since we got the dog, I noticed the change of behaviours with him and the change of behaviours with the place that I was at. And so I was like, no, this is not happening. Like, you're not doing this. I forgot this. Why don't we celebrate by watching a movie or go in the bath or whatever, like have a movie night? And he was like, I'm going with my mum, so you coming? I was like, no. So I sat down and watched the TV, and he was like, why aren't you talking to me for? So I was like, yeah. So that kind of ended up where I left, and in a really bad rage. No, not really rage. Just like he was properly crying his eyes out, and I didn't feel. I felt sorry for him, and I felt worried for him, because he kept on saying, "I'm going to jump off the bridge, and take an overdose or do something like that," and it made me fucking shit myself. So with me, I went back on Grindr the following day, and I knew I should have had a gap. I should have had a gap with some stuff with my life, but I didn't. I didn't, and I started talking to people, and this person come up, and he was like, whatever, like, let's mate up down, because I moved to my grandma's, right? Because I was a bit scared if he comes to my mum's. So I was at my grandma's, and he was like, where you at? And I was like, oh, I'm at my grandma's, and he knew where my grandma was. So he come out and started staring. So I opened the curtains, and he was like, I looked at him, and he looked at me. So I ran down the stairs, and I was gonna have a fight with him, and that was the first time when I haven't really been on drugs.
Yeah.
For like 3 years, for about 2 weeks, I wasn't on drugs. And that was kind of the most hardest time of my life, because I come an angry individual.
Mm-hmm.
And me going out there confronting him was the most kind of wavy thing of my life. I feel like with that situation, it was kind of like he kept on saying, I'm going into a mental hospital, I'm going into a mental hospital. And that put me onto a really bad wavelength, because he blamed everything on me.
Yeah.
And I didn't blame anything onto him. That was the thing I might have done. But I blamed him for a few parts, but he shot back at me and blamed everything on me. It's your fault I've done this, it's your fault I've done that, it's your fault I took an overdose. You put that first drug in your body, or you take that fucking alcohol. It's your fault, not mine. And so I spent about, and then it was Christmas Day, and it was kind of like, it was kind of like, my friend texted me and said, do you want to come round mine? I've got some weed and stuff like that, some oregano. And I was like, oregano? What do you mean oregano? So she was like, oh, it's the substitute for fucking, if you want to get high. And I was like, fucking hell, it's not like. So I was like, I'll get you some proper stuff for my friends. So I went round to my friend and said, can you get me some? So I went round to her house, and she was like, so I got a bag of Coke and a few joints, and I kept on going back to my mum's house, and every kind of day or whatever, I used to go around her, smoke a few joints and everything else. And that was kind of the worst time for me, because I felt like I felt normal again, and me feeling normal isn't good, because I get really paranoid.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to sit there and she used to tell me that she had lots of things going on with her life, and this coincidence and that coincidence and this coincidence and that coincidence and this coincidence, and your dad's not your dad, and this drug deal is your dad, and everything else. And that was kind of the turning point for me, because I opened the drawer one night and there was like rats playing in the cutlery drawer, and I couldn't concentrate, and I thought someone was coming in the house, and I thought the dogs were talking to the fucking whoever's coming in the house, and it wasn't nice one bit. Like, it wasn't nice. And then I tried to figure out that when I told my dad, you're not my dad, he took a step back and he says, Ethan, get the fuck out of this house. So I moved in with her for a bit. And I was still smoking a bit, like I was still smoking weed, and I stopped the crack and I just used coke and weed and a bit of alcohol nearly every night of the week, and then it progressed on to every night of the week, but like it did before. So we went out for a walk down the beach one night, and this was the last straw of me and her, because her daughter was upstairs, and her daughter was living in the house with her, and it was kind of hard for everything going on. It was kind of like I think me and her mum were really kind of putting pressure onto her, and me high every night, and her high every night was putting a bit of pressure onto her. So won't class her as a friend, my ex-associate was like, you need to go into my ex's my friends, my associate's dad come around and said, why the fuck are you in this house? Get the fuck out. So, and brought this really big dog round, which I got. And that was kind of the last straw for mine and her friendship. And her profession, I tarnished. And that was the worst pain of my life, because with that, I sat down one night and after making that phone call and after blocking her, it was a ping pong effect, because after I got out of that situation and moved back in with my grandma,
Mm-hmm.
I moved in, I found this lad on Badoo and I started chatting to him, and he was already drinking heavily when I showed up, and then he was just a bit weird. And then I brought my 6 ounce of weed round the house, and we smoked it in a night, and then we kept on smoking an ounce every fucking night, and it was just like, fucking hell. Like, so I started, he scuffled off back to his friend because he couldn't pay his way to go and get alcohol, and he left at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and get the bus back home. He does that on a regular basis, comes in and out. So I moved in with her, this new friend and the partner, and we got really close. We lived in Gateshead, and we used to go out every day and go to the Metro Centre or go out Newcastle or do something together, or go out food shopping or sit down and watch a film or stuff like that, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the most painfulest thing, is to go out drinking and sitting and drinking as well. Sitting and drinking was like you're isolated. So the friend who I lived with, for the first one I lived with,
Mm-hmm.
I dyed my hair. So I'm naturally brown, and I dyed my hair blonde and it went absolutely ginger. Right, absolutely ginger. And I was like, oh, this is not going on. Like, I need to dye it again. So I kept on dyeing it, and it just went fucking shit. Like, it stayed ginger. So she told the woman from the ski slope, because she was into skiing and so was the child.
Mm-hmm.
And she told the ski slope, and then the ski slope told my mum, and then my mum rang me and said, why you fuck have you dyed your hair? So I ping-ponged that, and I told her ex-workers or her ex-colleagues that she was a crackhead and a cokehead and an alcoholic and everything else. And she got psychosis, and she was so paranoid as fuck. And it was like the anger got out of me, and I was like on the phone fucking shouting and saying how much has hurt me. And then one day they just blocked me, and I was like, fine, that's fine. And then I moved in with my grandma for about 2 months, and then I had a seizure, right? So when I was living at my grandma's, I had a seizure, a really big tonic-clonic seizure, and I was out on a date at the time, and it was the most scariest thing ever, because I was high as a kite. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna stop. I'm never gonna go back there. And then that obsession got too much. and I went straight back on Grindr, and this guy was like, "Come round mine. We're gonna have a laugh." So I booked an Uber all the way up to Lanchester, and he was he had his own plot of land, and me being me, I kind of lied and told him a few porkies, because I thought, I'll be this bigger ego than you. I've got more money than you. I've got this. I've got that. I've got this. I've got this. And sometimes I don't have fuck all. And my grandpa took my money off me when all my money, right? And he still does. But every time I get PIP or Universal Credit now, because I'm on the sick at the minute,
Mm-hmm.
he puts it away, like £200 away kind of month. So he's got all my money. So I went all the way up there, spent some time with him, and that didn't go too good. I don't know what happened. I felt like I wanted more and he didn't want more, or the other way around. I can't really remember. But I told him one day that he kept on telling his friend that we didn't have sex. And he was worse than me for having sex. And I was like, okay, this is all right, like, this is all right. And then it got too much. So I was like, I'm going back to my grandma's. I'm going to live with my grandma. But I was winding her up constantly. This is the first time where I used to be high as a kite and winding my grandma up constantly and constantly and constantly and constantly. And I was so resentful. I was resentful for life. I was resentful for where I was at. I was resentful for most things. And that was the worst part about it, is that I couldn't physically cope with my emotions and my feelings and stuff like that. I feel like it was just a bit hurting me. So I was like winding her up every night. And then one day I went to a party and I had this weed vape pen. I bought it offline and I smoked that for a bit. I had a joint. I found that because my grandma used to start hiding the weed and all the. I used to get the harder drugs stayed on in my coat or on my person. Put the weed. She's like, I can't stand the smell of that, so you need to put it in a tin. So I put it in the tin. So I was like, I sniffed a line in the toilet of my grandma's house. Went to this fucking party. It was my uncle's 70th, and it was kind of like I tried to understand where I was and who I was going there with, and I started sitting with my auntie, and me and my auntie are really close. We still are. We're on the phone every single day, and she's really canny. Like, I used to work. I didn't work in her. I like volunteered my time to help her in her aesthetics studio down Sunderland, and she helped me quite a lot when I was coming off drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But because I used to go around and sit her, go on a computer, type up notes after notes after notes about her clients, and on a really big spreadsheet and stuff like that, which got me out the house. And so that kind of, so I went to this big party and she was there, and I started drinking really heavily, and I started going in the toilets and sniffing so many lines of coke, and it was kind of like I loved the feeling again. And then when I got home, my grandma fell over off the end of the step, and she put her hands against the bin. And the worst part about that was my uncle come round, and he started shouting at me, fully shouting at me, and I didn't know what the fuck to do, so I started shouting even louder. I was like, "Give me that fucking weed! I want that fucking weed," because they knew at the time I was smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know what to do with it. They didn't know what to do with the sense of how to cope with an addict.
Mm-hmm.
But my grandpa's also in the 12-step
Right.
fellowship, and
Has that got anything to do with you getting in there?
So he's in a different fellowship.
Right, he's in a different fellowship.
But he knew about the fellowship that I'm in at the minute. So I was hurting so badly after that incident, and my grandma was like, "You need help, you need help." I was like, I'm not getting help. For a week, I was like, I'm not getting help. Until the 17th of May. And where I smoked my last joint, smoked my last crack pipe, and took my last drink. And that was the best thing I ever did.
How long have you been clean now then?
4 months. And 4 months. Where's it gone? I've been clean for 4 months and 16 days, so 139 days.
Well done. Keep it up, man.
So the main thing, so I went to this lad's house who I met off a dating site again, and I thought everything was alright. I thought I could cope until on that night where I come back from his, I sat with my feelings and I was like, I can't do this no more. I can't sit by myself without a drink or drug in me.
Mm-hmm.
So I rang up the helpline.
Yeah.
And I went to my first meeting in Sunderland, and I kept on coming back. And my third meeting, me and you bumped into each other, didn't we?
Was that only your third meeting?
Yeah,
was
it was my third meeting.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, I thought I wouldn't last past 60 days because I didn't last past 60 days before, so why now?
Mm-hmm.
Why now? Why past 60 days? Why do I have to pass? So I rushed into getting a sponsor.
Yeah.
When I come into recovery, I rushed into getting a sponsor. And I got a one where he couldn't call me, couldn't phone me, I couldn't phone him, always went to answer machine, he's at work, or he didn't ring me. I tried to ring him, but he didn't ring me back. And then with the guy from the fellowship as well,
mm-hmm.
I went to the Friday night meeting, and I've seen this other guy before in the fellowship meeting, but I didn't know who was his sponsor.
Yeah.
So I've seen him around in meetings before,
mm-hmm.
and I started talking to her, and I didn't think I would get a more loving, caring, understands about my feelings, understanding that I'm hypersensitive in a way I am hypersensitive.
Yeah.
And really hypersensitive in a way. And I wanted what she got
Yeah.
out of her recovery. I've always wanted that. And I wouldn't say she's my sponsor. I would say that she's a really, really close friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
She'll just guide me through the step, but you have to have a connection
Yep.
with your sponsor. You really do. And I feel like that is kind of the best understanding around it all, is that you needed to find someone that will guide you through the steps, once what you got, and have a really close connection with. And I would say that I have, like, me and her have got so much in common, like singing, for instance. We sing on the way back down all the meetings that we go to together. And it's really nice. And if I'm struggling with something, or if I'm struggling with, say for instance, this incident that happened today, it was really hard. I spoke to her and she was like, what do you think you need to do about this situation, Ethan? You need to block him. He's only trying to get sympathy out for you. And I was like, so true. But in my recovery, I didn't get my first spiritual awakening until I went to an NA camp out convention. I feel like I went down with two other members out the fellowship, and it brought me a sense of connection and a sense of pride within myself. And do you know what I noticed? So I've got really bad self-obsession. I'm thinking, what's he thinking of? What's she thinking of? Why is he looking at me funny? Why is he looking at me funny while I'm sharing my thing? Why is he looking at me funny? Like, why is she looking at me funny? Like, I'm like that on a day-to-day basis. And with my mum and dad, I thought to myself, I need to not have that. I just need another break from them. I need another break from them. I need to focus in on me, because I was focusing in on everyone else. The dog. I couldn't get my step work done. I was going out skiing with my brother, focusing on him. And it was kind of hard. It was really hard because... So I thought, let's go into a treatment centre. I really need it. So I've been in there nearly 2 months. And I wouldn't say the treatment centre has been my forever, right? It's not my forever. It's just in and out, right? But I feel like I've grown as a person. And I've grown as a person because of myself and because of the people in the meetings and people's advice. I haven't grown in there. I know the steps inside out, but I wouldn't. And then I've learnt every tradition on the cards, but I feel like it's not just a me program, it's a we program. It's a me problem, but it's a we program. So if you have got a problem, you really need to reach out. Because I feel like the drink or drugs weren't my problem. I think the whole of the situation with my feelings and sitting with my feelings and sitting with my dopamine and sitting with loads of different type of things, it was kind of like I didn't know what to do with my feelings. And now I can sit with them right now. So
that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Should we finish it there?
Finish it there.
Thank you very much, Ethan.